Hello, everyone. Excited to be with you guys today. I have the privilege of having Sam Huebner with me today. Sam is one of the hardest working individuals I know. And he's also one of those guys that when I first met him, I just knew he was going to be successful in whatever it is that he decided to do. You'll learn today that I don't even know if he decided or would have known that what he decided to do would be where he'd end up. But a couple of things about Sam. I mean, he's one of the best friends that I know, one of the most successful businessmen, and one of the smartest businessmen I know. But I think the thing that most people would say about him that he does better than those two is being a husband and being a father to his four kiddos. And so, super excited to have Sam on the show today. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Always good to chat.
You betcha. Well, as everyone knows, the premise of the show and what we're going to talk about today is the defining moments in your life and how when you're in those moments, you don't necessarily know the magnitude of what they're going to be. But only when we look back on them can we tell that that was a pivotal moment and one that ended up, pivoting us into the next phase or into the next big decision. And so Sam's story is very unique, but very, in my opinion, exhilarating to see how what he thought he might be doing to where he's at today ended up changing. So Sam, I obviously don't know everything about your childhood, but I kind of know your story starting at you're from Colorado, but ended up picking to go to a school in Pittsburgh. How the heck did that come to be?
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago. But it was just one of those deals, as a senior in high school, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I had this opportunity to go to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, which didn't really know the school very well. They just had recruited me in basketball, and I was like, man, I got an opportunity to go to such an academically prestigious school. It's really hard to turn that down. Basketball kind of presented that opportunity. I'll be honest, I don't know that I would have gotten in if I wasn't a basketball player. So it was just hard to turn that opportunity down. So I started out there as, a freshman in college, playing basketball, studying finance. And I kind of knew right away it wasn't the place for me. Just a different lifestyle. I don't know that I was ready for how challenging it was going to be academically and how focused everyone was going to be on academics.
Yeah.
Very much an East Coast lifestyle, which was just hard. So it was a really hard way to start my college experience and didn't really enjoy it. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of how I ended up there. But, it's one of those things. It's just an opportunity that was difficult to turn down. Ended up being an expensive lesson for me, but a good one nonetheless.
Absolutely. So was it 1 year at Carnegie Mellon?
It was actually one semester.
One semester, okay.
Yeah. And, you talk about defining moments, and this is one that really took me a long time to realize was truly, it was truly a God moment for me. I had been recruited to play basketball at Concordia in Seward. And Coach Schmidt there had recruited me pretty aggressively in high school. I just never really entertained the idea. I didn't really like the idea of going to a small town in Nebraska. I wasn't really sure that's what I wanted. But I was miserable at Carnegie Mellon. And it was like maybe 5 days before the end of the semester. And I was talking to my parents, and I was like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. Should I just go to a public, university? I don't know if I really want to play basketball anymore. And my parents encouraged me to talk to Coach Schmidt at Concordia. And man, my parents kind of just pushed me to Concordia. Like I want to take credit for this move. I really can't. I just remember my parents calling me, and my mom was like, hey, I think this is great. You've always loved Nebraska. You'll have family nearby. You love the people. You're going to get to actually play basketball. And I was like, yeah, let me think about it. And my dad was like, well, you should apply. And he essentially was just telling me, like, either you're going to Concordia or you're going to stay at Carnegie Mellon. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not staying here.
Yeah.
So, so it was a God moment. And man, it wasn't an easy transitioning at semester, but I kind of knew right away that that's where I was meant to be.
Yep. That's awesome. So Sam ends up, transferring from Carnegie Mellon to small Seward, Nebraska, and going to Concordia, where he had a great basketball career. It was also, business student of the year for the university. So a stud muffin. But there was probably one other thing that happened in your time there that might be a little bit more important than either of those things.
Yeah, met my wife, and Concordia is a great place to do that. Now that I have kids, I'm already concerned about them meeting their future spouse. I already pray for their future spouse daily. And, my dad has always told me that choosing a spouse is probably the biggest decision you'll make in your life.
Absolutely.
And I definitely feel that, and I'm very fortunate to have met Kirsten at Concordia. We started dating my sophomore year, and as Phil, as you know, we went through our hills and valleys in college and grew together. But that whole thing, everything with Kirsten has led me to where I am today with the kids, with the business, and she is just such an awesome part of my support system. She's the biggest part of my support system. Phil, you grew up with Kirsten, so you know
Yep.
her really well. One of the many things I love about Kirsten as an entrepreneur, this really comes into play, is that when I have a crazy idea, and I have them regularly, Kirsten is just like, yes, let's go, let's do it. Like, what do you need me to do to help you do that? And so, when we started Parker Baby, which we'll get into, I was just like, I kind of have this crazy idea. Like, I think we should try this. And she's like, yes, let's do it. This is what I'm going to do to help you. And so, finding the right spouse, huge decision, and definitely a defining moment in anybody's life. So I just, Kirsten and I always just are so grateful for Concordia and for, that pivot in my life, bringing me to Concordia, because I wouldn't have met her, obviously. And so very grateful for that.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love that. So you wrap it up in your time at Concordia, graduating, and moving back to Colorado seems to be the right choice. And I know at that time you'd want to pursue a CFA designation. So talk to me a little bit about your transition back in investment banking, kind of what you got into there.
Yeah. So as most of you know, it's a pretty tough transitioning out of college into the working world. And it was kind of still a weird time, especially in finance in 2011 when I graduated. I had interned with a couple guys, really smart guys, in my summers at Concordia. And I went to them and I was like, hey, I'd love to work for you guys. Like, oh, we don't really have any jobs. And I was like, no. I really want to work for you guys. These are the two guys specifically were serial entrepreneurs, and they would buy businesses and kind of turn them around and sell them. And I had worked for one of the businesses that they were operating. It was a public company for a couple summers, and they're like, well, we don't even know what we would pay you. Like, and this is a sign of the times. I was like, pay me $30,000 a year, and I'll just do whatever you guys want me to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So it's the summer after graduating, and I'm living in Denver, and I'm trying to get out on my own, and I'm not making that much money, and I'm trying to save for a ring to buy for Kirsten. And but I just knew that I would learn a lot from those guys. There'd be a lot of opportunities, and they knew that my opportunities with them were kind of limited. So like, hey, we'll pay for the CFA if you want to do that, and you can kind of use that to pivot into something else if that's what you want to do. So I spent 3 years studying and eventually passing the CFA, which was took a ton of time. And another defining moment, I transitioned to go work for a small investment bank from after working for those guys, which was, kind of took a pay cut and to go kind of start, at the bottom of the barrel again. That was really tough to do. And, the CFA kind of allowed me to do that. But I pretty quickly realized I didn't really like investment banking. And that was a hard realization because I had just spent, they say 300 hours for each test. So
Yes.
300 times, almost 1,000 hours studying for these exams. And here I was with this light bulb moment where I was like, I don't actually like this.
Right.
So that was a really hard deal for me. I mean, you talk about like poor investments of money, and those are pretty easy to, you pretty quickly realize those, and I've made my fair share of those. But poor investments of time for me are hard, especially now that I feel like I have such a limited amount of time.
Yes.
So that was a hard one.
So I want to point out a couple of things that you just spoke about and not just blow past those. So one is your willingness to learn and recognize, like, I guess, humble yourself to say, hey, these two guys they're just intelligent. I know I'm going to learn something from them. So even though I may not make as much money as I could elsewhere, the lessons that I'm going to learn and the information I've gained to be with them is much more valuable than this extra $5,000 or, whatever the dollar amount is. So what about you, allowed you to see things that way? Because that's a very uncommon way to see, opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, part of it for me is I at the time I just really wasn't motivated by money.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't chasing the high, like you said, I wasn't chasing the highest paying job I could find. I looked up to these guys as mentors, and I kind of wanted my career path to be similar to theirs. Like
Yeah.
I would have loved to be, one of them is in his 40s, relatively young guy, and pretty financially independent because he had done stuff like this and had built businesses, and entrepreneurship has always appealed to me.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to learn from those guys. I knew that at some point, I, you know, it's hard being an entrepreneur coming up with that first idea and pursuing it. And that's where I was always stuck. I mean, especially fresh out of college. But I just wanted to get all the experience that I could so that when I did have an idea, I felt like it was worth pursuing, I'd be ready. And, I always liked working for small businesses. You wear a lot of hats. I didn't want to get caught up in like a corporate role, or even in like an investment banking, the typical route where you're kind of doing the same thing every day. I got to see a lot of, different layers of every business, down to the
Right.
field operations all the way up to, dealing with investors for a public company, and, going to board meetings, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was all appealing to me, more so than the money.
Yep. I think that's such an important thing to point out, though, is just those, skills that you can learn by having mentors and being able to grow with somebody are much more valuable than right away chasing that dollar. And I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into, right? Because we compare ourselves to our friend that's making more, and it's like, it's a long game. It's not the short game. The extra $3,000 of a salary isn't going to be the make or break between you and your friend in the long run. So I think that's awesome. And it just shows the vision and the intellect that you had early on to be like, all right, there's more here than just the dollars.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. So we're working in the investment banking world. You and Kirsten are doing well, and then kids start to come.
Yeah.
And round number one, we get two.
Yeah. That was I'll never forget that moment when Kirsten's pregnant, first ultrasound, and we're looking, and I don't know what I'm looking at, and I just hear Kirsten just start going, oh shit. And I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at, and sure enough, there's two babies in there, and it's one of those things that, like, at the time, we were both really freaked out, and it really took a while for that to wear off. I mean, leading up to the birth, we felt like we were in way over our head, and of course we were. And the awesome part is that we have an awesome support system out here in Colorado, both family and friends. And so we really, we didn't take that for granted. I mean, we knew that it was going to be difficult, but with the support of our family and friends, it ended up being a pretty awesome experience. But we were young, and it shocked us big time. I just, like, as you mentioned, I had just transitioned to a new job, and it was just a kind of a crazy time. And I'd like to say more about it, but it honestly is just kind of a blur to me because I was so sleep deprived.
Absolutely. Well, and so as any parent finds out, I myself not a parent, but I hear a lot of stories. You start figuring out, oh my gosh, there's like so much stuff and different products and things that I need to adequately take care of my child. And so right off the bat, you guys have 2 kiddos, and you start noticing that, one, there's maybe certain products that are, I don't know, you can maybe make better, or 2, they just don't even exist. So talk to me a little bit about like that dynamic of, hey, we're now parents, we're figuring these things out, and as that conversation starts happening, when you realize, well, maybe we should try this as a business opportunity.
Yeah, we definitely had some like aha moments with baby products early on. We were just all about efficiency with twins. I mean, schedule was everything, and we had to buy the right PJs because we couldn't be sitting there like fumbling around with buttons. So,
Right.
So we just tried to optimize everything, and I kind of remember with Kirsten we were using someone's bibs because one of our twins had acid reflux and was constantly spitting up, and I was just like getting frustrated with them. They were Velcro and they wouldn't stick and they wouldn't like actually cover her. And I was like, Kirsten, like, these are trash. Like, how much did you spend on these? and like typical dad moment, I'm just so frustrated. I was ready to throw them in the trash. And she's like, oh, there's like $25. I'm like, you spent $25 on this? And it's garbage. And so essentially it led to us looking at, hey, let's try and make these products. And with all the resources out there on the internet today, I just started doing it. And we designed, a few sets of bibs, of these bandana bibs, and placed our first order overseas. It was like probably like $1,500, and I was making like very little money, just had twins, opened a business credit card, 0% interest for 12 months. And I was like, okay, surely we can pay this $1,500 off over the course of a year. And, but it was like, I just remember Kirsten and I like praying about it constantly, and just because it was stressful. We were like, oh, this is a big step for us. And it just kind of, it took off. And, we just kind of kept pursuing it as a side gig while I was working investment banking, and kind of never really planned for it to get any bigger than a side gig that maybe Kirsten could kind of do when she's staying at home with the kids. But got a different plans for the business, and and it's grown, and
Yeah. So there's 2 things I want to ask you a little bit more about here. So I think not necessarily a mistake, but something a lot of people will do is, to your point earlier, hey, I've got this idea, but then it stops at an idea, right? They don't, whether it's because they're getting bad feedback from people in their circle, or they just don't have the extra, internal, like, all right, I'm going to go do this. So for you guys, did you consult with anyone to get feedback? I guess would be the first part. And then 2, whether it was good or bad, what do you think was like that extra nudge of, all right, I'm actually going to research this and figure out a way to make the product a better way, a more affordable way?
Good questions. We never really reached out to anyone to kind of validate the idea. I have a list of probably 30 business ideas that I want to pursue at some point. And I just like add to it constantly. When I think about something, I'm just like, hey, this would be an awesome business idea. But that kind of started right around the time we started this business, because it was kind of like like a snowball effect where, this started working. I was like, well, if we can make money selling bibs, then we can make money doing this and this and this.
Yes.
And the initial nudge, really, I just liked the idea. I liked being able to sell stuff online. I'd kind of dabbled in that from a reselling standpoint in the past. Like Kirsten and I always joke, the first Christmas we were in our house here in Parker about 8 years ago. I had bought PlayStation 4s and resold them on Craigslist, and that had essentially paid our mortgage for the month of December.
That's awesome.
With Christmas and everything, it was at that point, it was a big deal for us.
Yeah.
So I had liked selling things online. I had liked the e-commerce in general and where the trends were heading in e-commerce. And it just kind of naturally fell into some of my skill sets. And so it didn't take much of a nudge for me to be like, oh, let's do this. And yeah, $1,500 is a lot of money for us right now. But when I looked at like the risk of, what is the risk? Well, the risk is we liquidate these at our cost, or maybe we lose $500 and we can absorb that. It's not going to break us.
Yep.
So that was kind of the nudge for me. I always just, minimum variable product, right? So like, what's the bare minimum we can do? What's the bare minimum we can risk to kind of validate this business idea? And we did that, and it, was validated really quickly. And from then it was just, how do we grow it?
I love it. So that's in 2015, and we have 2 kiddos there, and so we'll learn more about this as we keep going. But Ava and Eleanor are our 2 first kiddos,
Mm-hmm.
and so Ava was they came up with bows because she didn't like hair in her face. So they said, well, we better create something to keep hair out of her face, because if she doesn't like it, I'm sure there's others. And then Eleanor, he already mentioned, had some acid reflux, and so she was constantly spitting up. And so they said, well, we better create these bandanas that one will, help us there, but 2, if I understand right, get rid of the Velcro so that way washing is a little bit easier also.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah. And a big part of it too is just Kirsten is a very active mom. She's involved with a lot of other moms and mom groups, and so she keeps up with trends. And I had never knew how quickly patterns and design trends change in the baby world, but now I am all too familiar with it. So that was a huge part of it too. Like, make stuff look nice, but it also doesn't have to be, super expensive, which a lot of brands in our space do. So yeah, it was a combination of things. Ava and Eleanor, a lot of inspiration behind those first few products. So
absolutely. Then, and I might be off on the timeline, but we're just going to go with Greta and then August and them. So Greta was the diaper caddy, right?
Yeah, that's a really funny one, because we were changing a lot of diapers and kind of all over our house. We had 3 kids in diapers, and Phil, I know you're a clean freak. You won't enjoy this, but we just plop a kid down anywhere in our house and change a diaper. So
I've been to that
house. So, if my kid's, on my desk, I'm working at home, I'll just slap them on the table and change a diaper right there if I have to, and send them on their way. So that led to this. We looked at diaper storage products, and we're like, at the time, I was really, this is really weird for me to say, I was really into felt. I was like, man, felt seems like an awesome material. It's cheap, it's soft, it's light. I was like, what can we make out of felt? And I was like, let's make something to store diapers out of felt. And so we did, and we got the first, I remember we got the first sample, and it just felt so cheap. And I was like, man, I don't know if we're ever gonna be able to sell these. People are not gonna spend $20 on this thing. We improved it a little bit, improved the hand feel, stuff like that. And it's one of our best selling products to date. And we have a design patent on the product, and it's done really well for us. And if you would have asked me when we first released that product if it would be our best seller, I would have told you you're crazy, but it is. Yeah. And it's turned out to be a huge product for us.
I love it. And then once again, this isn't necessarily in the order of the timeline, but then August, we have our 4th and final kiddo, son, and there wasn't necessarily a specific product that you needed for him, but you said, you know what, we would like to have a couple products to at least say we had one for each kiddo. And you
Yeah.
came up with the quilt and then the swaddles, right?
Yep. Yeah. And we've always had a hard time. Like, hey, we need more boy products. We have all these hair accessories, and that's because I had 3 girls before I finally had the boy. But when we did, we're like, well, what can we do? We can't really do hair accessories. So the quilt and the swaddles felt like the next kind of natural transition for in terms of the product lineup.
Love it. So,
Yep.
so the Good Baby's been going on for 2 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going back a little bit, but 2 years, and then you finally say, you know what, day job, I'm gonna exit from that and just do the Good Baby at the time.
Yeah.
What's that conversation like? I mean, that's obviously a little bit of stress involved, I'm sure.
Yeah, that is when you first told me you're doing this podcast, you're like, let's talk about defining moments that maybe didn't realize till later on. That's a huge one, because that's a huge leap of faith for any entrepreneur. I know a lot of people are starting side hustles these days, and when you first start something like that moment when you transition to full time seems like it's so far off. In a lot of ways, it was for me, but it just got to the point where to do my job the way it should be done, and to grow the business and give it the time and effort that it requires to grow and to succeed, I had to be doing it full time. And obviously at that point it was self-sustainable, and we were able to, we were paying bills. We were making money, not a lot of money, but making enough money to be like, hey, I don't need this income from investment bank to sleep at night. I can start transitioning. And transition literally was in our unfinished basement and an old dining room table, set up at the time, the Good Baby HQ in the basement, and was working full time at home with 3 kids under the age of 3 in the house. So big transition. A lot of prayer, a lot of thought, a lot of discussions with Kirsten leading up to that point. I wouldn't say I wish I would have done it sooner, but you kind of wonder if I had done it sooner, if it would have made things a little bit faster in the growth of the business. But tough transition.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted just to get your take on this, because there's so many entrepreneurs out there, and everyone has reached their pinnacle of success in different ways, right? Certain people say, hey, do a side hustle until it can replace your income, and then leave your job and take over. Other people say, well, if you're doing that, kind of to your point, like, you're not going to grow as quickly, and you may never take it as far as it could go, because you're going to live in a life of comfort knowing you have that salary. If you quit, you got to make it work. What would your thoughts be, either having experienced and done one of the 2 routes, or just to somebody that's thinking about, entering into the entrepreneurial space?
Oh man, that's tough. I definitely err on the side of keeping your day job as long as you can. I just think in terms of de-risking your financial situation, like, it's wise to do that. I worked, I would work my day job, and I worked investment banking, but not like, I worked for a boutique investment bank. It was not working crazy hours. I wasn't working these 90 or 100-hour weeks. But I was, working until 5 or 6 every day, and then get home and hang out with the family. And then I would work for, 4 or 5 hours at night.
Yeah.
And it was tough, but at the same time, there's so many things that can go wrong in a business that's 2 years old that can make or break you.
Right.
And
I was gonna say, we're gonna get to one of those.
Well, yeah, we are gonna get to one of those.
Yeah, we're gonna get to one of those.
And I've had my fair share of them over the 5 years that we've been running Parker Baby. It was a Good Baby, but it's just having that income and something to fall back on. You sleep better at night, and until you can I think you just put it off as long as you can, because you just never know what's going to happen with small businesses.
Yep. Nope. That's very fair. I was listening to Damon Johns. He's most well known for being on Shark Tank, but in our era, he was the creator of FUBU. So that's going to date us for sure. But he talked about how he worked for 5 years, waiting tables and bartending and whatnot while he was creating FUBU, because of exactly what you're talking about. Hey, I'm entering into a business world that I don't know all the ins and the outs. So this at least buys me time where I'm going to be able to pay my bills and I don't have to make any rash decisions on, the FUBU brand. So I always think it's interesting hearing different people's perspectives. So perfect.
Yep.
So talking about it, because you brought it up, so I will let you pick. As I was researching, I found a couple of stories that would fit this mold of tough make or break moments, or potentially seemingly make or break. I don't know all what you can and can't talk about, so I'll let you pick maybe one or two of those and just share, what happened and then how you guys resolved that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the big one was right around that time I transitioned to working from home, or full-time, working on the Good Baby full-time. We had got a trademark for the brand, the Good Baby, and which is awesome. It's great. I mean, it wasn't, it was a long process to do that, not incredibly expensive, but it kind of put us on the radar for this brand that I was not aware of, called Good Baby International, a company based out of Hong Kong. And they own they're, like $600 million company. They own several baby brands across the world. And I had one of their corporate lawyers contact me shortly after we got that trademark, and he's like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work." I'm surprised. He said, "I'm surprised that the USPTO even gave you this trademark, because it's so close to ours." Yeah. So that was a really stressful time, because anytime, legal issues oftentimes can break small businesses, and at that time we were not really capable of sustaining a legal battle. The guy was cordial. I mean, he was nice about it. He was based here in the U.S. I think he kind of understood where we were at. But I had, kind of sat on it, talked to a lot of several mentors, and got, just different advice from everyone. One guy was like, "Yo, tell him to pound sand, fight him." I was like, "Yeah, but like I can't, I can't pay legal fees to fight these guys for 2 years. And what happens if they report us to Amazon or something and they shut us down on the sales channel? Like we're toast." And and then talking to lawyers, talked to so many lawyers, they're all like, "Yeah, you have a good case here. Usually what the USPTO decides will stand in court. The problem is you'll probably spend at least $200,000 in legal fees fighting them.
Wow.
And there's a possibility that in the meantime they're not gonna allow you to sell online until you get this figured out." So that was a huge risk, and we loved the brand, we loved the name. We had all of our products were branded the Good Baby. We had, I don't know, a couple $100,000 in inventory maybe, but we were not capable of a fight like that.
Yep.
So super stressful time. Eventually we ended up settling with them and changing our brand name, transitioning to Parker Baby. Yes. And that's another thing. It's another, like you said, it's another defining moment, because it actually ends up being a blessing in disguise, because it really made us focus on our branding more. When we started the Good Baby, we're just like, let's do these bandanas. Let's, spend $50 on a logo and call it a day. We went back to the drawing board and we just rebranded. We're like, hey, let's put more time, effort, and money into our website, our branding, our voice, our social media, all these things. Rebranded to Parker Baby Co. And looking back, it's easy to say now. It actually was a pretty painless process.
Yeah. But to your point, I mean, when you're a small business and you're, growing, you've created a bit of a brand. It's hard to think about, switching brands, keeping those people engaged, and then almost not completely redoing it, but, getting the engine going again.
Yeah. And just in terms of manpower, at that point, I was the only person working on Parker Baby or on the Good Baby. And so, on top of the stuff that I was already doing, I had to figure out how to transition our brand and transition all our products over to a new brand name, and managing our website, redoing the website and all our photography, all of these different things. I just had a lot of balls in the air at that time, and super stressful, but the legal issues always are. And that's not that it wouldn't be our last legal issue that we've had. And it's just kind of the nature of doing business, I've learned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and, I mean, I think it also is a tribute to certain amounts of success, right? People oftentimes don't care until you've hit a certain threshold, and then all of a sudden more eyes, more ears, more notoriety.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So I want to ask you a question, and not everyone listening is going to have a faith life at all, or even a strong faith life, and I recognize that. But I know, Sam, that's something that's really important to you. And just hearing you mention it a couple times a day, and I guess the question I'd have for you is, how do you discern between all right, what am I praying for, and what I think I'm hearing from God, versus what Sam and Kirsten want to do, or what direction Sam and Kirsten want to take the business? I mean, I think that's, a tough thing for anyone, but, just for you guys, what have been some of those, hey, this is what we feel like we heard to nudge us in that direction?
Oh man, that's a tough question, but it goes back to that decision, who you're going to marry. And Kirsten is awesome. She really, from, faith standpoint, is just huge support for me. It's awesome having a partner that you can consider these difficult business decisions prayerfully. And big thing for us has just been trusting in God and His process. And we look back at all these moments, many of which we've talked about here, and we truly feel like these were God moments, and that a lot of these were gifts from Him to us. Yeah. I feel like we've worked hard to build this business, and but at the same time, he gave us this idea. He gave us, he gave us twins, healthy twins, and they were the inspiration behind this business. And he has just allowed this business to prosper, and it's never easy, but we just trust in the process, trust in God's plan for this business. And we hope that we can use this business and, the financial benefits of owning a business to give back, and to give back to God and to others. And I think we've done that. And Kirsten is a huge part of that. It's helped us get through so many really difficult decisions and really difficult times, like that lawsuit. There were nights where I just felt like we were going to go under. I was going to just quit my job, my day job, and 2 months later I was going to have to fold my company and go back to the drawing board and start at the bottom of the totem pole again.
Yes.
But Kirsten and I complement each other really well in that, she can tell when I'm not managing or handling something well, and she steps up big time. Love and she's a prayer warrior, and that has just been huge for us in our marriage, and certainly in our business. So
that's awesome. I love it. Now, within Parker Baby Company, obviously, to your point, the first $1,500 investment went quicker than what you thought. And, but it wasn't until, really like a few products down the road that you said, hey, we got our best selling product. Was there any specific, moment or month of all of a sudden the business it took off? It was going well, or it was doing okay, but then all of a sudden, whether it was social media or whatever, you just saw this big spike? And if so, what was that like, and what was kind of the story behind it?
Yeah, I think a few years ago, right before Christmas, we released a diaper backpack, and it was like one of our first more technical products. It was more expensive, and we launched it, I want to say in October, right before the holiday season, and it just started selling like crazy. And we're scrambling to try and order more. It takes about a 90-day lead time on them, and we're selling out of stock. And we're like, how do we get more? And that's one moment where I was just like, man, this is just kind of crazy. And your margins are better on them, and it's a product that we're just really proud of. It's our own design.
Yeah.
We'll spend a lot of time and money, several trips overseas to get it figured out, and we finally did. And the market kind of confirmed what we had hoped, that that it was a great product that would be useful for parents and a great value. But so that's one. And then this year has been just so weird for everyone, and e-commerce has grown like crazy because we've lost a lot of competition in the brick and mortar space.
Yeah.
And so this year our growth has been just crazy. And it's hard. And I talk about this with other people in e-commerce because we know that there are a lot of people struggling out there. But e-commerce,
Yep.
depending on what you're selling, has seemed to be immune to that. So just another thing that we're grateful for. But this year, as I've really felt the growth be like parabolic. We've hired more people. We, renting a warehouse and office space and managing our own fulfillment now. We're signing up our first wholesale retail account. Stuff like this. This year has just felt like we're almost hitting like critical mass, where I'm not, staying awake at night wondering if next week's going to be our last week as Parker Baby. So this year has brought a lot of that confidence in the business for me.
I love it. That's awesome. So Parker Baby Company is crushing it, doing well. We'll include in the notes in the bottom just the link to them so you can check out their products. But as is typical Sam fashion and how Parker Baby Company got started, there was just issues. Sam's a pretty tall guy. I don't know what the exact basketball measurements were. I think it'd probably say 6'7", 6'8", maybe on real life, no shoes, 6'5". But either way, right? You get it. He's tall. He's about 6'7", and you have always struggled, as I'm sure a lot of tall people do. I don't have this issue, but finding clothes that look good, fit well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea for the Redwood Tall Outfitters becomes an idea. Talk a little bit about that, how it comes to fruition, and what you're excited about there.
Yeah, we started Redwood Tall about a year ago, and it's one of those business ideas that has been on my list that I was telling you about for a long time.
Yeah.
And it comes from a mentor of mine once told me to find something you hate and turn it into a business. Because there's a good chance that other people hate that process too. And I've always just hated shopping for clothes. Like it's something that like Kirsten, when we first got married, she had to realize, like, no, I'm not going to the mall with you because I can't just grab something off the shelf. I'll try it with you, and you're going to quickly realize that I'm not crazy. And so it was just something I was like, let's make this better. Like I can go to a big and tall store and get a triple XL shirt and swim in it, but it'll be long enough. Or I could go, to this Gap or something and get like an extra large, and it'd be too short and show everyone the small of my back all day long. So we started Redwood Tall, and it, to be honest, Redwood Tall has been really slow to get started. It's a much smaller market, obviously, than baby products, and I've always known that, and I don't have like these crazy aspirations for Redwood Tall to be like some, clothing brand, well-known clothing brand.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's kind of like a lifestyle thing for me where, if we can run this on the side, we already have all these tools, we already have all this knowledge in e-commerce and product development and all these things. Let's leverage that. Let's build out this brand. I'm certainly certainly care more about clothing for tall men than I do baby products. I certainly it's so more a part of my day to day, especially at this point when my kids are older.
Right.
I'm more passionate about the brand. I feel like there's more that can be done there from a branding standpoint and for me personally. And but it's been slow. You know, it kind of goes back to that de-risking idea that I kind of founded the Good Baby on, and that we're going through a guy that we've used on the baby side for a supplier on the clothing, and he's let us do really small orders, which is awesome. And so it hasn't been a ton of risk. Just waiting for that little bit of risk to pay off here, but it's slow. It's taking time, and we're being patient.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, now I have just a few pointed questions that I want to ask you that I'm just always intrigued by from people. Okay. So first is someone that I look up to or listen to a lot. Hey, he uses this phrase, and it's blissful dissatisfaction. Okay. And the premise of that is a lot of people never reach their true, I guess, growth opportunity or who they could become because they reach their first goal and they plateau. The complete other end of the spectrum is, though, there are people that are constantly wanting the next thing. They constantly want more. And so they never take time to be satisfied with what they've already accomplished. I think you and I probably both fall into that trap of those where it's like, well, yeah, I want more. So I don't want to get comfortable and be on a plateau. But for you and Kirsten, how do you guys balance that of, gosh, we've done so many amazing things in the last 5 years, but there's more to accomplish?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot actually, because we do go back and forth between the two. I mean, I don't know how many times I said to Kirsten that I wish that I could just keep doing what I'm doing now and make the same amount of money forever. I'd be completely fine with that. But at the same time, I am torn by this. Like, you see what these other brands have done. And you're like, man, we should be doing this. And if we did this, then we could achieve this sales goal. Or, I've gotten to the point where at first I was really averse to hiring people because I've seen how hiring people can break small businesses too, and overhiring and dealing with employment issues.
Right.
And now I'm to the point where like, I love my employees, and I can see, it goes back to like the team aspect from, like when we played basketball together, and you can see how a team working together can achieve awesome things. And so we go back and forth on it so much. I think it's a healthy balance for us. I definitely think I err, like you said, on the side of keep going, growing the business. But at what price? I think the thing that Kirsten, as you kind of mentioned earlier, like work-life balance is so important to me. Like there were times in the business where I was putting in crazy hours trying to get to where we are now, and to a point where I felt like I didn't have to be on the clock all the time. Yep. And there's so much stuff that I don't want to sacrifice to attain that next goal. And those main things are, time with my family, time with my friends, and just seeing my kids grow. I don't want to chase a crazy number or sales goal, or be consumed by my business but miss out on some of these other things that are goals of mine in raising my family and being around. So
absolutely. Well, and I know you've had great role models of that. Parents that have just wanted to support you and be there as much as they can. And so I'm sure that that's something that you want to show your kids as well. Love that.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
Right. Next, pointed question. Your favorite book you've ever read?
Oh, man. This is a little bit of recency bias, but a couple of years ago, I read The Vanishing American Adult by Senator Ben Sasse, actually of Nebraska.
Okay.
And something about it really resonated with me. One, because a lot of the stuff he talks about is the millennial generation, which you and I are both part of.
Yep.
And then two, a lot of it is just parenting. And, when I read it a couple of years ago, I had 4 kids under the age of 4, and just trying to think of what values and stuff I want to instill in my kids. And he touches on a lot of concerns that I had about, how I was raised, or how I was going to raise my kids, and where I was going to raise my kids, and what values I want to teach them. And so that was a big one for me.
I love it. I love it. All right, then last one. Whether it's your close group of friends, your family, or people that you're adding to your work team, what is, the 1 or 2 characteristics, qualities that is most important to you?
I mean, Kirsten and I talk about this all the time, and what we want, like our family values, for instance, or like what, if we had a family motto, what would it be? Or if we had a mission statement for our family, what would it be? And we really want our kids to be servant leaders, and to have this mindset that that they are called to serve others and to love others. And I think that it's a really broad statement, right?
Yeah.
To say like a servant, you want someone to be a servant leader. And so I'm kind of cheating, because that encompasses a lot of different things. But in the people we've hired for our business, we've found people that I believe are servant leaders. They really are want to serve others and to help others, and it makes things so much easier. I mean, it makes people easier to manage. It makes it easier to work towards a common goal. And honestly, if 15 years from now, I look at my kids and I can say that they're servant leaders, I'd be incredibly proud of that. So
I love it. I love it. Well, very good. Well, Sam, I appreciate the time today, man. It was amazing just hearing your story and all the, hurdles and pivots that have happened to get you to where you guys are today. Once again, congrats on Parker Baby Company and, Redwood Tall, and we'll look forward to continuing on the journey.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it, man. Always good talking and catching up with you.
You're the man.